Welcome to this episode of Your County. I'm your host, Dianne Parker, and we are talking today about recreational marijuana being legalized in Montana and what this means to Yellowstone County. We are visiting today with Chief Deputy County Attorney Jeana Lervick, and it's so great to have you on the show today. Thanks for coming by the studio.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so a lot is about to change here in Yellowstone County, and we should just let our viewers know that we are recording this show. It's November. A lot of these changes are happening as of January 1st, right?
They are.
Okay, so some of the things that we're going to be discussing, there might not be a solid answer for it right now, but there's a lot of things moving behind the scenes, and Jeana is here today to really let us know what's going on, how some of these decisions are being made. I know one of the most recent things to happen is the November election, and voters in Yellowstone County did approve to tax recreational marijuana and medical as well, right, at a 3% rate. So it looks like there will be tax revenues coming into the county.
Yes.
What else can you tell us about recreational marijuana and what our viewers can expect to see?
Boy, there are a lot of moving parts. As you know, in addition to taxing both recreational and medical marijuana, which the voters overwhelmingly approved, and we certainly appreciate, there are changing rules, changing ideas a lot at the state level, and so a lot of that has been us sort of adjusting as we go along in the county.
Okay, so as it stands right now, pre-January 1st, medical marijuana, of course, legal in Montana. It has not been taxed, so that'll be something new. It will be taxed. And then what does this look like for the recreational marijuana? Who is going to be opening up shops? Are we going to be seeing tons and tons of new stores in town, or what does that look like?
So for the time being, for a period of approximately 18 months, starting January 1st, only the existing medical marijuana dispensaries are going to be able to sell recreational marijuana. So we're not going to see a big balloon. We're not going to see a lot of changes, at least out in the open. In addition, for the past, a little over a year now, the state has been stating that any new licenses that have been granted to medical marijuana dispensaries are sort of on hold. So we're talking about medical dispensaries that were in operation as of October of last year. Those are really the only folks that are going to be able to sell recreationally for a good period of time. How that's going to look otherwise is something that the state really has been working on. Prior to this legislative session, the Department of Health and Human Services oversaw medical marijuana. Now, the Department of Revenue is going to be overseeing both medical and recreational marijuana. And so they're trying to adjust to a whole new department, trying to adjust to how all of these rules that were set forth in, it was House Bill 701, are going to affect day-to-day operations. And they're going to be in charge of licensing as well. So a lot of moving parts, to say the least.
Right, that's a lot going on. So maybe there's some folks out there listening, they're thinking, hey, maybe this is an industry I want to get into. What would you advise them to do? Like, is there a process that they follow right now, or what do they do?
There will be, and the Department of Revenue will be overseeing that. My biggest piece of advice across the board is to talk to an attorney. Because in addition to all of the changes that are coming with the state, both the city and the county are looking at how we're going to be addressing it as well, in order to make sure that if all of this change comes, that it comes at a pace that we can handle. And so, as you may know, the city's been looking at some ordinances that will affect everyone. The county is right now going through a process of looking at zoning, and so we're trying to determine what's the best fit in order to incorporate these changes to what we have going on right now. So definitely want to talk to an attorney and find out what the rules are at the time and what they could be in the future to the extent possible.
Okay, good advice there. Okay, now as far as the zoning goes, what will be some of the parameters, if we know them so far? Like, can they be next to a school, for example?
So as of right now in the county commissioners are looking at a setback of, in most cases, 600 feet. And so 600 feet from schools, from churches. Yesterday, they also looked at incorporating from recovery centers and certainly from residential areas. Those are the biggest concerns. Now, we do have medical marijuana dispensaries in surrounding areas because, as you mentioned, they've been legal within the county. Some of these will be changes. Those particular folks are not likely to have to make immediate changes. The county is putting in interim zoning, and so that means for an hour, for a year, they're temporary while the county continues to adjust to what's going on.
Okay. Now, I know we were visiting a little bit before the show, and in Yellowstone County, this isn't something where we actually know where all of the medical marijuana dispensaries are, but as of January 1st, that will all become information available to the county, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Previously, because the Department of Health and Human Services oversaw the dispensaries, they were not able to share that information with us at the county. And so as of January 1st, part of the House Bill 701 is we will get information on where they're located, how they're operating, whether or not they're licensed, and I think that'll help quite a bit. It'll help us with code enforcement. It will help us with making sure that everyone's complying with these new rules. So.
Right. It seems like we're probably going to notice some signage popping up just with a larger population that's going to be able to purchase.
Yes.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit about anything that you might be anticipating or the county as far as crime or just impacts that this might have on the county.
You know, obviously this is one of the biggest concerns with changes like this, and certainly among the county commissioners and the county attorney, as well as the sheriff's office. I think nobody quite knows what to expect. I think that it's encouraging with this new tax. We hopefully will have some additional resources with the public safety mill levy, which was passed within the city. I'm sure that the police department is looking to get some new resources to hopefully help. But there are significant concerns, and nobody quite knows what to expect. The nice part about that 18-month buffer is it should not be something where we see a dramatic change immediately one way or the other. So hopefully it will be something that we can tackle if there is an increase as it comes along.
Okay. Thank you very much for all the info.
Absolutely.
So what about with recreational marijuana being legalized in Montana, we've talked a little bit about the shops, like the storefronts where folks can go. What about growing, manufacturing, things like that? What do the residents kind of need to know, or any information that you could share about that?
That is another aspect of this whole moving part situation. When the city looked at whether or not folks within the city wanted recreational marijuana shops, it was one of 7 different categories that they sort of tackled at this last election. In the county in particular, we're looking at not only recreational and medical marijuana shops, but also, as you say, the grow operations and so on and so forth. The Department of Revenue has before it a number of different rules and regulations regarding size, regarding visibility, regarding whether or not they're outdoors or indoors, and they're continuing to tweak those. As recently as yesterday, I know that the Department of Revenue was looking at whether or not to allow different forms of cannabis within the shops, because right now even that is very restricted, as well as THC content and so on. So really the Department of Revenue is going to be driving that within the county for the foreseeable future. Now, one significant allowance that the new bill does provide for counties is if there's a change, such as the recent election within the county that indicates a sentiment has changed within the county. Because, let me back up a little bit, when marijuana was legalized within the state, the legislature then took counties that had approved it and counties that had not approved it and made different rules for both. Yellowstone County the voters approved legalizing marijuana. But the county commissioners do have the ability, if they see enough of a significant change, to put that to a vote again. So as we're talking about the grow operations, as we're talking about the recreational operations, the commissioners are also looking at, is this a possibility where none of these are going to be held within our county, or are we going to continue to follow along with these different rules for the different types of operations? I know that's a lot.
That is a lot.
But
so I'm just curious, is this how things have operated in other states that have come before us that have legalized that? I guess I didn't realize that. Like in a state like Colorado, I thought it was the whole state. You could go anywhere and get anything that you want. Do you think that they've operated on a county by county basis, or is that kind of special for Montana?
It's been special for Montana, and we've spent a lot of time talking to folks in Colorado, talking to folks in Washington, and seeing what has worked and what has not. The approach of the legislature was an understanding that out of all of these counties, there are very, very different situations, and out of all of these counties, they had very different votes when it came to Initiative 190, which legalized marijuana within the state. So in an effort to tackle that, the legislature really tried to put it back within local control to some extent. So the legalized product is really within state control. Department of Revenue is licensing, Department of Revenue is overseeing where it is legal. But whether or not it is ultimately something that is legal within a county, they seem to put back on the counties to decide. And so our surrounding counties, for the most part, all voted no to Initiative 190. So in order to legalize it with the state, they have to have a vote to put certain categories back on, or to legalize within those counties. Ours is the opposite. Ours are legal unless we vote otherwise.
Okay. All right, so always the possibility that this could be hitting the ballot again.
There is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So talk to us a little bit more about maybe what the residents can expect. Are we going to be seeing like signage going up? Are they're able to advertise just like any other normal business? What will we see out there in Yellowstone County?
There will continue to be restrictions on advertisements. Right now, with the medical marijuana facilities, there are very strict requirements on what types of signs, how big the signs can be, what they can say on their signs.
Okay.
That will in all likelihood continue with both the zoning changes as well as the county continuing its requirements on signage. Okay. In addition, the Department of Revenue is also looking at its own requirements. I believe they are looking at not allowing, for example, sales online.
Okay.
And so this is not something where anyone's going to be able to, in the near future at least, call DoorDash and have it delivered.
Okay.
That said, the identification will certainly be allowed. They're legal businesses within the county as of January 1st. So it's something that we have to find a delicate balance between the two.
Right. Okay, and I know you mentioned a little bit about what types of marijuana would be allowed in the stores. What is that looking like? I mean, I know there's different versions, edibles, things that come in a food or a drink or whatnot.
Absolutely.
What are the parameters there that we're going to be seeing?
So there will be, again, as of today, there will be allowed edibles. There will be allowed varying content, varying servings within reason and within very set parameters. The Department of Revenue is going to be regulating the THC content. So, for example, how much of the previously illegal substance is within the cannabis. They will also be requiring on packaging full disclosure of what it is that's being purchased. And I know that there is within the state a very, very strong desire to make sure that, particularly among edibles, it's not being mistaken for candy.
Right.
That is a huge concern of Department of Revenue, of the state as a whole, and certainly within the county, of making sure that this is not something where children can look at it and say, oh, yay, gummy bears. So
Right.
in order to regulate that within a legalized business, I know the state is looking at some very strong restrictions.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
what is out there
Yes.
come January 1st. So maybe let's talk a little bit more about the grow operations. Is this something that we already have facilities in Yellowstone County with the medical marijuana?
Well, that's actually a difficult question just
Okay.
because the state was not able to provide us with explicit information. To the best of our understanding, there are not at least large-scale grow operations within the county. But again, that's hard to tell. The cultivation, as I understand it, does take a considerable amount of time. And so I would imagine, particularly depending upon what sort of requirements are created for licensing, that we will start to see folks who are interested in large areas.
Okay.
Again, there will be some pretty strict requirements on how visible is it. Smell, I know, is a concern as well. And looking at what sort of requirements there are for everything from irrigation to transfer after the fact. Transfer is also something that is going to be separately regulated both by the state as well as across the various counties. So it will be something that we will have to deal with. It should be something we have to deal with after the 18-month period, assuming everything continues the same.
Okay.
But I would not expect individual residents to be affected by large-scale operations, which I know are a huge concern to folks.
Right, I know, because sometimes if you're visiting another state where it is legalized, you can smell it. I don't even know, are there any things that you can put into place to like vent or that so that you don't smell it in a neighborhood? I actually don't know the answer to the question. Do you?
I don't offhand.
Okay.
I do know that the Department of Revenue and the House Bill 701, which really put in a significant number of suggested prohibitions on all of this, has attempted to sort of quell that as much as possible. I don't know how effective it is.
Okay.
I'm very interested to see how this all plays out, particularly because you are looking at county by county differences. And so it's across the board, regardless of what happens within the county, will not be illegal under certain circumstances and making sure you're following all of the laws to, for example, purchase in another county, come back to Yellowstone County and utilize the marijuana.
Right.
So grow operations, I would imagine, will be something the counties will want to work together on so that you're not having patchwork laws, patchwork issues that can come up with it, such as the smell.
Okay, so speaking about this just on a larger scale nationally, with marijuana still being illegal, what are some reminders that you can give our viewers out there if they do purchase it legally here in Yellowstone County, let's just say January 1st?
Sure.
We don't want to be like driving across state lines or things like that, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yes, and certainly to the extent that that folks are traveling outside of the state, to be well aware of what the requirements are, both for transfer as well as if they're coming into the state. But you don't want to be crossing state lines, and this certainly is not something where obviously we do not want folks to go completely crazy and be purchasing mass quantities, because there are restrictions on that.
Okay.
There are restrictions regarding how much you're allowed to have, regarding, as I say, THC content, not only on the people who are selling it, but also in terms of purchasing and possessing it. There are requirements on how it's transferred. It must be in a sealed container. It must be in a non-accessible area, because driving under the influence will include driving under the influence of marijuana. So people are definitely going to want to be very careful about how, where, and when they're utilizing marijuana, even once it becomes legal in Montana.
Right, so it would be just like an open container. You wouldn't have that in your car, so you need to leave everything sealed up if you're buying it and then driving home.
Yes.
Okay, what is the limit, I guess, with a DUI, we know what that is, but what would it be with marijuana?
That is something that we're still working on.
Okay.
And that is something that also will depend on the circumstances as well. Another thing to bear in mind when you're talking about college campuses, when you're talking about being in public, those are, even if you are over the age of 21 and an adult responsibly using, those are still going to have limitations that folks are going to have to be aware of.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a learning process for everyone, to say the least.
It really will.
Yes.
Well, this has been really informative. We want to thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I think just that, we certainly appreciate folks wanting to know the rules, wanting to follow the rules, and to encourage people to continue to do that, because this will be a change, and it's one that we want our community to continue to be as safe as possible.
All right. Very good. Well, thanks again, Jeana, for all the great info.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time on Your County.